All right, welcome Tuesday night. We are glad you're joining us tonight, and again, as always, we really do appreciate you joining, and I invite you to ask questions. Tonight's topic is does loyalty really matter? And obviously, like, it's easy to think about loyalty from the standpoint. Of course, it's the easy answer to the question. Loyalty clearly matters, right? But
Yes, so what else are we going to talk about?
let's think about it from the standpoint of how God feels about loyalty, His definition of loyalty, and how common or uncommon is loyalty in the human race, and especially in today's we'll just say today's generation. The reason why I say that way is because I've read a number of books that have talk about World War II and or specifically focus around World War II, and one of the things that has always stood out to me is the level of loyalty among soldiers. And one of the things that has always caught my attention is when that's missing. And there have been these stories that I've read about men who would shoot themselves. They'd be on the front lines. They'd shoot themselves in the foot or in the arm, or they would act insane. They'd act out some kind of insanity and try to be declared unfit for battle or unfit for the front. And so you had these different things. And obviously this wasn't the World War II was a very interesting time in the world, but the common thread of men and women during that time was there was this thrust of unity in the same direction. People were banding together, but you had these people here and there that were like, I'm not, I don't care, I'm out of here. And so holding on to that mindset and what drives that, and then thinking in context with men at the front. I read one story about these two soldiers whose job it was, their entire job was basically to crawl out on the battlefield and repair a communication line that was damaged regularly during battle. And so their job was to find wherever it was broken and repair the line. And you got to, that's obviously incredibly dangerous. And so one of the things that snipers like to do is they would shoot the communication line and then they wait for people to come and repair it. So these guys were putting their lives on the line every time they went to work. And they weren't there to defend themselves either. And so there was this one story, these two guys, that was their job, and they were given leave. It was time, hey guys, you need to take a break. You've been here too long. You've been on the front for a really long time. Go back to France and just enjoy a good week, 2 weeks off. Basically, go have some fun. And both of them protested and said, we're not leaving. Yeah. And when they were asked why, they said, because we don't want any of our friends to have to go and do our job. Yeah. And so there was this click, and in the same thread of the story, he was talking about men who actually went AWOL. They were declared AWOL legally, officially declared AWOL because they left the hospital and hitched rides back to the front so they could be with their brothers. They didn't want them being out there by themselves or without them. They wanted to be a part of it. And so on the one hand, you had this picture of the total lack of loyalty and disregard for loyalty across the board for certain people. And then on the other hand, you had these men who loyalty became who they were. They defined their decision making, and and many of these men lost their lives. And obviously that level of loyalty is why the Allied forces were able to win World War II. And I've read many, many, many stories where if it wasn't for somebody's loyalty to either the cause or the mission or the objective at the moment or their men, if there wasn't some sense of loyalty, battles would have been lost, fights would have been lost. Who knows if the war would have even been won. There were so many different dynamics playing in, but this issue of loyalty played such a key role in victory during World War II, and it's played a huge role in loyalty throughout history or throughout success and ingenuity and stuff like that throughout history. And so thinking about that, the scripture that I was reading through for this was Proverbs 20 verse 5 through 7. I think we've actually talked about this scripture before, but only one of the verses. And so I'm reading around the rest of it, verses 5 through 7. It says, the intentions of a man's heart are deep waters, but a man of understanding draws them out. Many a man proclaims his loyalty or devotion, but who can find a faithful man, a friend?
Yeah.
The righteous man, this is the verse 7, the righteous man walks with integrity, blessed are his children after him. And I actually believe that those three verses go together. Proverbs is interesting because some of those verses you could they're like standalone. They don't necessarily have a context of before or after. There's sometimes a flow of thought. Sometimes it's like just this is a proverb, that's a proverb, here's a proverb. And so when thinking about this specific scriptures, he talks first about men with intentions and how deep they are. There's a lot of intentions, right? Deep waters. And then he says, but a man of understanding is able to bring them out. And then he says about a man's proclamation of loyalty. Yeah. And he says, but who can find a faithful friend? And so there's a proclamation of loyalty, but then there's obviously something missing in the common man that he's pointing out. And then he kind of caps off this thought by saying the righteous man walks with integrity, and blessed are his children after him, or the integrity of his heart, another translation says. And so one question to just kind of kick off this whole thought, because it's one thing to intend and it's one thing to proclaim, and a lot of people proclaim some belief in God. They proclaim some understanding of heaven and hell and the Bible being truth, and then they will intend to do all the right things and never do them. But then he caps off almost like a standard. He says, but righteous men live by the integrity of their hearts, and blessed are their children after them. And so I want to ask this direct question, and then we'll kind of jump around a little bit, but how does God see loyalty?
How does God see loyalty? Well, it's an interesting thought. My mind is in a completely different direction at the moment than that when you started talking about this. I was about to give the deepest, darkest secret of the entire universe.
42. I already know that one.
Yeah. This is even deeper than 42. This is the answer to the question. This is the answer why. Well, this is the question behind 42. Loyalty, I don't know that I like to use the word feel, but loyalty, very clearly, biblically speaking, loyalty is God's, how do I want to say this? It is everything. If you don't have loyalty, you don't have anything. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you're thinking. I don't care how you are. That's why Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 13 about love, and he talks about that chapter is a very interesting chapter because he starts off by saying all the things that I can have, I can be, I can know, but without love I'm nothing. He doesn't say without love I'm a lesser. I have nothing. I am nothing. I'm just a noisy, clanging cymbal. There's nothing to me at all without love. And the root of love is the issue of loyalty. There's no two ways about it. That loyalty is everything. Because you cannot love and not be loyal. The two cannot be separated.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because there's the Bible actually paints a pretty diverse picture of loyalty. I mean, obviously they all gear in the same direction, but words like steadfast, faithful, the word devotion is an easy one. There's another word, cleave, that's used in the Old Testament. A man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. It's a picture of loyalty and devotion. Covenant. And how God feels about covenant, and so there are all these descriptions. There's many more actually that the Bible describes, but it's something that I think is like and I don't know if this is just worse and worse over my generation and recent generations, and maybe you can answer a little bit more to how that's changed, but when you think about it from the standpoint of how much loyalty is subject to what's going on at the moment and how fickle it is in people's minds.
It's not loyalty.
Right.
Yeah, it isn't. It isn't loyalty. Loyalty's a loyalty now today. Loyalty is one of those. It's a word that King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table used.
This is
Yeah,
the time of chivalry.
It's
and-
not a. It's not a. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
It's not an idea or a concept today that anybody gives any credibility to. That's a history. That's part of the Knights of the Round Table, and it's mostly legend. It's stories of loyalty. It's not actual loyalty. Nobody is really loyal. It's all stories of loyalty. It's not something that was ever practiced. And so the idea of being loyal has a, truly loyal is non-existent. The word is no longer used by us in that context. Loyal now means, you're doing your best, whatever that means, whatever it means. It doesn't matter what it means. Even if your best is terrible, it still counts.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
it's
so
very different.
so let's get a solid definition. Now, I'm going to ask a question to the listener. I really want your answers. I really want your answers here. How do you know where your loyalties lie? How would you describe that? How do you know that you're actually loyal or somebody is loyal? How would you identify
Interesting.
that?
Now I have two things.
So I'm going to post that, and then I'm going to ask you to just give us let's get a clear definition of loyalty.
Well, your question, how do you know when you're loyal, or where your loyalties lie? You actually asked the other question that's not in the actual question you posted, but is the more important question is how do you know when you're loyal? Because we will tell, that will be easy to say where our loyalties lie. That will be very easy. And, my family, my job, my this, my that, my the other thing, this thing, that thing, we'll be able to enumerate where our loyalties lie. But are you loyal? Is the more important question, because we answer the question, where do my loyalties lie? We know where, sort of theoretically. Mm-hmm. And that's really our answer often to those kinds of questions is theoretically.
Well, hold
what's the right answer?
Yeah.
As opposed to what am I?
Yeah.
And so the idea of are you loyal is probably you have to answer that question really.
So hold on, because you're kind of jumping the gun a little bit, and so I'm So like one answer came in. This is what I'm looking for. So I'm not asking where do your loyalties lie, because like you said, that's easy to say.
Well, that's your question.
No, it's not. It's not. How do you know where your loyalties lie?
Oh, okay.
How do you know where your loyalties lie?
Oh,
Very,
okay.
very specifically
Okay.
asking
All
that
right.
question. So I'm gonna give a little bit more time for other people to answer. Really want your answers here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now we're talking about a definition for loyalty. So you can define loyalty while people are answering this question, and just help us understand. Let's just set the record straight. What is loyalty?
I'm going to trash your questions by answering these.
Hopefully you're.
As people, I'm not answering this question. I'm not going to answer it
My
because.
hope is you won't be seeding the answers. Yeah.
No, I won't. I won't. If anything, I'll be damaging them. I won't be, because it was like I'm not even gonna answer that because.
Okay, let's.
Because I'm not loyal.
Okay, so okay. Then
But yeah, no. So the idea of loyalty, the true idea, the true thought of loyalty, and this is an interesting thing. How do I want to say this? It's because you mentioned. It's funny you mentioned this because it just literally I had an incident today that brought up the whole thought of loyalty. Let me waste some time. That'll give people some opportunity to be able to answer the question
okay,
before
I'm going
I
to do
go
something
right at
totally
it.
sacrilege while you're doing that. I'm going to
Go grab yourself a cup of tea while Grandpa profundicates on his
gosh.
ideas of.
Profundicates. There you go. There's a word I haven't heard before.
But so when I was in the church in Tucson, probably, well, I was only in the church in Tucson until I was 30. So somewhere in my mid-20s, I was involved in a play, and many people have probably heard of the play or of the movie that the play was from, which is Hook. And I played Captain Hook. And I enjoyed playing the role because of the character I can identify with in many ways. The sort of sarcastic, holding everything in contempt.
I can see that.
That was, especially at that time in my life. I have mellowed out a little bit over the years. I'm not as quite holding the world in contempt as I did back then. I have a little bit more heart. But one of the lines he's talking about, he's frustrated because I can't remember the exact details of the entirety of the line and what caused him to make this statement, but it's a bit of a monologue that he makes, and he makes this statement, and the statement is what stuck with me for years. He says, how did he say it exactly? He said, I am bound by my indefatigable good form. And that was a phrase that really resonated with me. Because I had to memorize these lines, so I went over them again and again and again. But that phrase resonated with me as a Christian because, and it popped into my head today because I was thinking about some things that I wanted to do and thinking, but what about the consequences of that decision for other people? And it was a decision that didn't have anything to do with anybody else. It had to do with the decision that I was wanting to make about being away, and how often to be away. I've been thinking about trips this year, beginning of new year, and going away and thinking if I schedule these trips close together like that, how is that going to affect other people and their Christianity? And it's like, the reason why that line jumped into my mind is because that comes up again and again and again in my life, and it's a conflict because it's not something that's very common that I have seen. It's just not something how people think. If people want to, generally speaking, if people want to go do things, they just go do things. They don't really put that much thought into how these personal decisions of my life are going to affect people around me. In very grossly difficult ways. Like, okay, I'm going to leave my kids home by themselves for 2 weeks, and they're only 10 years old. That kind of thing people think about. It's like, is this a good idea to leave my kids by themselves at 10 years old? People think about that kind of stuff, but I'm talking about something where you're talking about leaving somebody home who doesn't even live in your house without your presence there for 2 weeks, and how is that going to affect them? That's not a thing that most people it doesn't even cross their minds. They don't even think about it. But that's called loyalty. That's the definition of loyalty, of being a loyal person, is that's how you think. You think that way. You think about everything that you do is from the standpoint of how is this going to affect other people. Everything, every decision, every thought, every consideration, your plans, how you spend your money, what you buy, is it extravagant? Is it could I get something cheaper? It's loyalty goes above, can I afford this? Because you may be able to afford it, but is it a good idea in terms of how it's going to affect other people? And that's the definition of loyalty. But like I said, that's a definition that most people don't think about. Like you said, these guys, these guys that you're talking about, I don't know them. I've never met them, but I'm fairly confident that if you were to talk to them about why they didn't want other people going out there, and they would say, well, because it's very, very dangerous. And then you ask the question, well, why are you doing it then?
Yeah.
And for them, it's going to be because it needs to be done.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to do it, so I'm going to do it. I don't mind putting myself at risk, but I do mind very much putting other people at risk. It's putting other people first. That's what loyalty is, and that's why they wouldn't go on vacation. Is like they're not going to go. They're not going on vacation because they prefer not to go on vacation. It's just they couldn't enjoy their vacation knowing that other people are putting themselves in harm's way because of their decision to go on vacation, even though it may be well deserving.
Yeah.
It's not a decision. That I'm not going to take myself out of harm's way in order for other people to be put in harm's way. I'm not going to do that. And so that's the issue of loyalty. That is, like I said, is just not even something that's considered anymore, that kind of thinking. But those people, that's what it means to be loyal. Those are loyal people. When you're like that, loyal, you're loyal. When you can make decisions of personal sacrifice, and it's not a personal sacrifice, it is the right thing to do. I just have to do it. I'm not going to put people in harm's way. I'm not going to do it. And that line, that's why I mentioned that line, is being bound by your indefatigable, the idea that this is an attribute of your life that never sleeps. It never sleeps. It's always there. It's always working inside of you. It's always there. And everything in life is triggering off of that idea, that Captain Hook says good form, but that's what we would call loyalty, is doing the right thing, for the right reasons. And so it's a very powerful way of thinking, and this can be misconstrued. It can be affected where you are not willing to do anything, because you don't want other people to have to do things for you. Or not to not do anything, I should say. And that's not loyalty. Loyalty is not letting anybody do anything for you. That's not loyalty. Loyalty is not you doing everything yourself. That's not loyalty. Loyalty, the idea of loyalty is that whatever you have committed yourself to, you're committed to, and you are it's just a part of who you are, that you're going to keep that. You're going to keep that commitment. You're not going to pass that, or you're going to have a very difficult time passing that commitment off to other people. It's only when absolutely necessary, when you have to make the decision between, okay, if I don't go, these people are going to suffer. If I go, then these people are going to suffer, and then you have to weigh it out as to where's the greatest benefit for others. When it comes right down to it, these people, okay, they'll be okay. These people can really use my help, so I'm going to go there. So that's how I work through those kinds of thoughts of that idea of loyalty is who not who do I like, who's what's going to be funner, none of those kinds of things. It's always from the standpoint of where's the most benefit, in doing this, where's the most benefit, not for myself but for other people when making these decisions. And that's really what should be driving loyalty, when it comes right down to it.
So where is, and again, I posted the question here, and I'm hoping to get a couple more answers. We'll look at these in just a second, and appreciate those I've already answered. But the question is, how do you know where? How do you know where your loyalties lie?
Okay.
And so,
You didn't ask me that.
No, not you.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
just asking that again for the audience. I'm going to give a little bit more time for it. But where is this commonly broken down? from your perspective.
Broken down in the negative sense, like it falls
So this is-
apart?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. You were going to add something to that at the
No,
end.
that's it. That's the
Okay,
question.
just where commonly in general.
Yeah.
Okay, not specifically.
I was going to say from your perspective.
Okay, yeah. So, so most of the stuff I say is from my perspective. I
Yeah.
do not pretend to be the fount of knowledge. The breakdown goes two ways. Like I said, is the one is where it becomes pride. It's just pride. You're doing things out of pride, or you're not doing things out of pride. You're not. Your motivation is not to be helpful. Your motivation is to appear helpful, or to appear humble, and that is never, doing things for appearance sake is never a good idea. It's never good to be motivated by appearance only, because that's the Pharisees. They did things to be seen of men, Jesus says. And he said, don't be like them, so that we have to, keep that thought in mind. But then the other side is which is the more prominent, the breakdown is, I'm tired of doing everything for other people. It's, what about me time?
Yeah.
And that's really where the breakdown comes, is that this idea, I deserve some me time now. Like as if, you've done so many good deeds and you've helped so many people that now you've purchased time for yourself. That's not, loyalty doesn't think like that.
So what about maybe specific, I don't know, categories, contexts, situations, what types of things that you see? Well, how would you say the lack of loyalty is costing society at large? Like, what are the areas that, like, if loyalty was applied here, it would change things?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, okay. I think it's probably time for me to pull out my my answer to the life universe and everything. I've been a Christian for 40 years. I've pastored 4 churches, and I have been in 6 churches, and in different parts of the world. And I have never once, either as a pastor or being in these churches, either lost personally or saw someone fall away that was loyal.
Define fall away.
Never one. Go back into the world or whatever, or stop believing in Jesus. All the gamut. Become lukewarm. Become a Sunday Christian. I've never seen that happen to anybody who has been loyal. And it's always been. And here's the key, because you asked me. You said, how does this affect society? So here's the thing: is that every single person, without exception, I went through a number of people in my mind, and there wasn't a single exception that showed up. And I went through 40 or 50 just right off the top of my head of people I know, 20 people that I lived with, because I lived in 2 different guys' houses, and all of them are gone today. And because I think Elliot asked me it last night when we were on our way to the men's class, talking about, it's like, a lot of your friends are backslid. I said, no, almost all of them have. All the ones that I got saved with are all backslid. There's two people I could remember as we're going through it. There was only 2 people that actually got saved around the same time that I got saved, that I kind of was new in the Lord. And this is out of probably 20 or 30 people, that 3 people altogether. 2 of them have passed away, and one of them is still alive and is still living for God. But everybody else, just gone. And it's like, wow, it's amazing. It's amazing. At the time that I got saved, it's like when I got saved, these people that were saved that I knew, and it was and I'm sure there will be acquaintances along the way, but these are people that I knew. Our lives were tracking the same. We were, the term that we use is litter mates. We kind of all got saved together. We're kind of from the same litter. So I'm not talking about every church everywhere or anything like that. I'm just talking about those people. But then expanding that out to my experience, and that never. It's always been people who have always, at some point, prior to their exit from belief, either going all the way to not believing in God anymore, or simply being, kind of a, very lukewarm Christian, anywhere in between that area, has always been, okay, what about me? And they started living for, what about me? I need to focus on my life. And no sooner did they do that than they began to lose momentum in relationships, in serving God, and hunger, appetite for the things of God. And anybody who's listening, if you have gone through cycles, where you're doing really well and then you're not doing really well, and you're doing really well and you're not doing really well, I guarantee you that if you will take the time, if you can take the time, at the points when you're at the lowest, those are always a time where you have stopped looking out, you started looking in. And you're thinking about yourself, your future, where you are in life, the things that you want that you don't have, the places you want to be that you're having a hard time getting to. Me. It's all about me. And that is always the downfall. And so to answer your question is, how does a lack of loyalty affect society? It doesn't affect society. It affects every single person. And so what ends up happening is society as a whole suffers because society at an individual level is suffering. And here's my piece of wisdom that you can take as you wish. I know after 40 years that this is the secret to staying at the top of your game in life, is that the most self-fulfilling thing that you can do in your life is to become loyal. The most selfish, self-fulfilling thing you can do for your life is to become a person who is loyal. That your whole life is focused outward, 100% outward. Jesus said, "He who loves his life shall lose it."
Yeah.
And so that's the key of that, is that the person who has said, "I don't care about my life anymore. I don't care about how I am doing. I don't care about any of those. I'm going to stay focused on how other people are doing. I'm going to keep my head in the game. How are other people doing? What can I do to make life better for other people? How can I help other people to get to where they're going in life? How can I help?" And obviously, for me as a Christian, that all points towards bringing people to salvation. But once you achieve that, and it is achievable, once you achieve that, it becomes just automatic. It just, all your decisions in life just begin to focus around that. You're just making decisions about being, and it's funny because, it's not so much now, but over the years, it was like, I had to consciously harden my heart to tell my wife, you know what, I don't care what you do. Just go. Just do whatever you want to do. Live how you want to live. Do whatever you want to live. I literally had to consciously harden my heart, make decisions in my mind, saying, I don't want to go here. I don't want to think this way. But I am so done with trying to live somebody else's life for them that it's like, and like I said, it's not a thing anymore. It's not an issue as far as, I don't have to live Mariah's life for her. That was the big revelation, is that it wasn't a requirement for me to help her to achieve, her goals for her life that she didn't have. They were goals I had. They weren't goals she had for her life. They were goals I had for her life. Because I went, you could do this, you could do that, and that was difficult, because I felt that for a lot of people when I was pastoring, is just like, what you could be and what you could become, and I would carry I would carry people, into my destiny for their lives, and it is like, this is just ridiculous. They just they don't want this, but I look at it and I think, but your potential, the blessing, the favor, because of what I'm experiencing, and I want other people to have that, and I realize, I can't do that. That's not about being loyal anymore. That's about becoming, a dictator, tyrant. It's just like, you're going to do this because this is the right thing to do for you, because I think so. Other people have to make those kinds of decisions for their lives. But the bottom line is if you can learn how to be loyal in the true sense of the term, where your concerns are always about other people, you'll find, and I know in my own life, it's not, I didn't say I perfected it. I said I've achieved it. But perfecting it is, there are times where there are, relapse isn't the right word, challenge, temptation, where there's temptation. Something will hit you, and then, and it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to start looking at myself about this. And it's a moment, it's a moment, it's a circumstance, it's a situation, and I think, and I'll turn inward and I'll go, no, stop, because there's no answer there. There's no answer turning inward. That's just the devil. And you think about, Eve, when did she, how did that work for her? Well, what were all the decisions that she made, in order to eat from the tree? Me,
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Looks good to me. It looks good. It looks good for food, for me. And it has the potential to make me wise, and she eats. And that's always the devil's strategy is always turn you into yourself. So when you start turning into yourself and you start pondering these ideas of why things are going the way they're going and how come this is happening and why, you can mark it down that there is a devil that is planting seeds in your mind to turn you inward, because he knows if he can turn you inward, he can get you to walk away. And it's as simple as that. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how. And so loyalty is always outward. Loyalty is always towards other people. So I mentioned about the idea of loving. When you love everyone, you stay out. You don't go, you are beneath me. I'm first over you. And I've watched this play out in people's lives where it becomes very clear, that I am second in their lives or lower, and they are above me. Yeah. Their own life is above my life in their ideas and thoughts. And it's a tragedy to watch that play out, because it's the incredible shrinking person. Because the more inward you turn, the smaller and smaller and smaller you get. And it's funny because I see people, that they're Christians, they come in and God's doing a great work in their lives. And that's the way I would describe them, is they get bigger. It's like they become bigger, physically bigger. And then I watch and I can see decisions people are making and they're shrinking. It's like they're physically shrinking to the point to where they leave the church or they go somewhere else or they do something else, and they're only this big now. They're very, very tiny. There's not much to them anymore, because everything in their lives is about them. And I learned, and I learned because my dad is like this. My dad's not very good at being social. He's never been any good at being social. And his only way of being social is to talk about things that interest him. And so when we even to this day, we get on the phone and we're talking, is he can spin up, talking about what he's doing or what he knows, and he can just spin up and he can talk about all these things, that he's interested in for a long, long, long time. But then we get to a point to where, okay, I'm going to have to come up with some other conversation and to try to get things going again, but I was like that, growing up. I saw myself going that way, and before I became a Christian, I was very unsociable, because I didn't I didn't have any. I didn't see any need to have to communicate with other people. My dad didn't communicate with other people, and he was a pretty smart guy, and he could do stuff, and I didn't need to. But becoming a Christian is like, okay, there's lots of people here. You're going to have to learn how to talk, and be social. But I can't just talk about myself, and I can't just talk about my own interests, because I know how I get when I'm in a conversation like that. Somebody starts, especially people start talking about sports, and they get on it, they spin up, and they get on sports, and I'm like, dude, how much longer do we have to talk about sports? Because I'm not interested in sports, and it's like, how much longer do we have to go down this road? And so I know how I can be when it's stuff like that, and so learning how to focus outward on other people it will change your life. It will literally change your life. Everything that you ever want to achieve and to do in life will happen. And the reason why I say that is because everything you want to do and achieve will change.
Yeah.
It won't be about, I want to go here and go there and do this and do that and do the other thing. It'll be, I want to experience, internally. I want to experience joy and peace and those kinds of things, and that comes out of turning outward.
Okay, so we have a question that this is after the answers, then we'll get to the answers. And this is one of those, just we'll toss the answers out and you just give your thoughts on it. Because the question is, how do you know where your loyalties lie? And so the quick clarification, what do you mean by they get physically bigger and then shrinking?
Well, like I said it's like that. I didn't say it is that. They don't, people don't come into the church and they're like 12 feet tall or anything like that. It's just, they just, to me, as I see them, it's just they become very, very small people. When people are selfless, you want to be around them. You want to spend time with them. It's enjoyable to be around people that are not caught up in themselves. But when you're around people that are caught up with themselves, it's like, really difficult to want to spend time with them, because it's like, I know you really don't care whether I'm here or not. I'm just another ear for you to talk to, about yourself. That's really the motivating factor. And so it's like, go away, go away. But others who are, they're not like that. They're loyal, they're selfless, they're interested in other people. It's just like they could take up the entire space of the room, and it wouldn't be a problem, because they're enjoyable to be around.
Okay, so let's go through. We've got a few answers here, but so again, question: how do you know where your loyalties lie? First answer is what you're most protective of is what you're most loyal to. Thoughts?
Well, excuse me. You already mentioned that. That wasn't really the answer to the question. I misunderstood it as well in the beginning, because you asked, how do you how do you know where your loyalties lie?
It seems like a pretty straight answer.
What about being protective? That's how you know.
Probably what you're most protective of is what you're most loyal to.
And so that's how you know where your loyalties lie, if you're protective of them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, you can't. How can you argue with that? I mean, there's not anything to.
No, just straight
argue.
answers. Just looking.
Yeah, there's nothing to.
Again, remember, I paired this up with the question of defining loyalty, and so
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is just from the standpoint of defining loyalty. Well, the thing you're most protective of doesn't necessarily mean that it's the thing that you should be loyal to.
Now we're talking about being loyal to the right thing.
Well, yeah, but that's my point. Is that so you're saying, how do you know where your loyalties lie? Is being protected. So it's like, yeah, okay, fine,
Yeah.
But is that loyalty is another question. Like I said, this is a different question.
Yeah. So next is in life with, in, for Jesus, saved by Jesus, living out life for him, I think is the answer there. And actually, we'll hold off on comments for that one, because I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But I think it depends on what the loyalties are, but maybe what I'm willing to spend my time on. Is that how you know where you're loyal?
Well, that's the interesting thing is that we have these two questions that are going parallel that the one doesn't answer to the other one. It's the idea is, you may have a misunderstanding of because you're talking about a foundation, of it, and that answer is a foundational answer, because it's like, well, where I'm willing to spend my time, that's where my loyalties lie. But is that a legitimate thing to be loyal to?
Yeah.
I mean, like I could,
Well, is that true? Is that true? Is that a true answer to the question? If I'm thinking, okay, where do my loyalties lie? Okay, all right. Well, what would I spend my time on? Okay, I'm obviously loyal to that.
Well, yes, and that, but like I said, you can't argue with the idea of where your loyalties lie. It's whether or not those are,
Okay.
where you should be
Yes,
applying
yes.
loyalty.
So we're going to close the
So it's a
podcast
whole-
out with that idea.
yeah, so that's the whole-
So this is
that's
now,
a whole
now we're
different
getting people
thing.
to think about how
Yeah.
do I know where my loyalties are, what I'm protective over.
Yeah. Yes.
What I spend my time on.
Yeah.
And so then starting to ask the question, okay, what is the right thing to be loyal to? Because then
Yeah.
you have to answer. Now we have to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
whoa,
once
whoa,
you
I
answer
don't actually
that-
spend my time on this. I'm
Yeah.
not actually that protective over this.
Yeah,
I
and it's
should
something
be.
you should be loyal to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was the point that I'm making is that these are two parallel ideas that are not, the one doesn't answer to the other one because this one can be all the things that you're, where your loyalties lie. There can be a lot of reasons for that, but are they the right reasons?
Yes.
And that only comes from the answer to the other question, which is the idea of am I loyal?
Yeah.
And so that
So that's why I'm asking
Yeah.
the question now.
Yeah.
So now that we've answered, we're getting people thinking, okay, what do I spend my time on? What am I protective over? Answer the question now, what are we supposed to be loyal to? And again, thinking in context of how God views all of this, what's going to be, if we're honest, or we're just being transparent here, what's
Yeah.
going to be eternally consequential?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are you really being loyal to the right thing?
Yeah. Well, see, again, because we can enumerate things that you should be loyal to, but how do you know when you're loyal? You still, that question still has to be answered. When are you loyal? The Bible says, a faithful man who can find.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when you're that person?
Mm-hmm.
And that really is the issue. When it's who you are, not what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're talking about the what you do. And it's like, okay, so you can be doing. We could enumerate a bunch of stuff, and you're still not loyal.
Mm-hmm.
We still haven't answered the more important question because, there are a lot of things that you should be loyal to, but how are you going to be loyal to something if you don't know what it means to be loyal? So we could say, well, you should be, loyal to your spouse, your children, your job, your church, your self. You can throw all kinds of targets out there, but if you don't know the general meaning of the word loyal, then you can't. How are you going to do that? How are you going to work that? Because your original thing about those two men, I'm quite confident that if you were to talk to them about the issue of what they are loyal to, they probably would have a real hard time answering the question. Because it'd be like, where do I begin? I'm loyal to everything because I am a loyal person.
Yeah.
And so how can I answer a thing like, for somebody who's not loyal, they could probably enumerate what they're loyal to. Because they're not loyal. So there'll only be 3 or 4 things, 5, maybe a few more things in their life that they're actually loyal to. But it won't be an innumerable amount of things or a large amount of things. It won't be that. It'll be what am I loyal to? So I'm loyal to my wife. I'm loyal to my wife or my husband. Yeah. Let me see what else. I'm loyal to Okay, so, and that's how it'll be, because the idea of being loyal to something, you're talking about something that you have placed higher than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be very many things like that if you're not loyal. If you're not a loyal person in general, then there's not going to be a lot of things that you're going to place above yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That things that, if they demanded your attention, I'm loyal to my kids. It'll be those kinds. It'll be those kinds of things. It'll be those. Those will be the things. Is the things that have demanded your time. They have demanded your attention, and you have conceded your time and attention to them because you know that that's what it means to be a decent human being. But if we, like I said, if we zoom way out, we're just talking about loyalty in general as an attribute, as a virtue, that covers way more ground than just the things that demand your time, because it actually, we haven't even got to starting to talk about loyalty yet until you get past the things that demand your time and start talking about the things that just simply need your time. They're not demanding it. It's not the squeaky wheel getting grease. These are things that you're saying, I'm committed to this. Like that, keeping the communications open or die, or live, take the chance of dying or keeping the communication. Well, I'm not really involved in this, and even if the communications break down, there's a good chance I can still live through all this.
Yeah.
I'm not putting my own life at risk by not keeping this cable working, and that's where the difference lies.
Okay, so do we need to redefine loyalty?
We already did.
Okay, so when it comes to a person's life, how do you know if you're a loyal person?
We just talked about all that.
I know.
The last 50 minutes.
Because
it's who
on
you
the
are.
one hand, on the one hand,
you're a loyal person because it's who you are.
So
when you go to
hand,
make a decision,
yeah.
When you go to make a decision about your life, and you're
that's very subjective, though,
first
isn't it?
thought.
Because, like you said, you can ask somebody the question, "Are you a loyal person?" Yes, I'm loyal to X, Y, and Z. These are all the things I call important.
Yeah, right, and that's all about them.
That's my point.
Yeah, that's all about
so
them.
How do you determine the difference between what is loyalty?
Because
and
there
what
will
is
be a
subjective loyalty?
because there will be a multitude of things that you don't want to be loyal to, that you are loyal to, and you're still loyal to them because it's who you are. That was why I use that phrase about being bound, bound by my indefatigable form. Is that the whole idea of that thought is you know what, he's basically saying I'm so sick of my virtue, and that's how you know when you're loyal, is that your virtue, the virtue of loyalty, makes you do things that you don't want to do, but you don't have a choice but to do them because of your indefatigable good form. You don't have any choice. It would be such a violation to your conscience to not do it, and that's it's so much higher than trying to put this into the context of things, of actions, because it's not about actions, because the action doesn't matter. The action doesn't matter. It's just a wire. It's a cable. It's a cable that anybody could fix. It's not something that requires expertise. It's exclusively an issue of danger of which everyone can deal with. All you have to do is crawl out there on your hands and knees and be careful, try not to get shot, and then you just twist these two wires together and then everything's good. Anybody could do it. Anybody could do it. But not everybody will. And only certain people will say, no, I'm not taking a break from this. Because it's not about the skill set. It's about simply the fact of, if I do this or if I don't do this, other people are going to be put in harm's way. by me doing this. Other people are going to suffer from the decisions I make. And we're not talking about a graphic thing. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of people. We're talking about if we go on vacation, 2 more guys are going to go out in the field. And those 2 guys, we may come back a week later and they're still alive and everything's fine. And everything will be wonderful. But if one of them gets shot while I'm away, I'll never be able to live with that.
So how do you apply that to the practical world?
But
we're not talking war times, and we're not.
But I am because that is a very practical thing. He's not. They're not. It's not mandatory for them to do this. It's not something that they have a particular skill set or they're unique in some way. There's none of those kind of factors that are involved, and that's what makes this the practical. Is if it needs to be done, why shouldn't it be me? And if it like they somehow Providence brought them into this. Okay, guys, I'm sure it wasn't 2 other guys, coming and saying, listen, you guys, we need backups for when we die. Will you be the 2 men to stand in for us when we get killed?
Yeah.
It didn't play. I'm pretty confident it didn't play out like that. It could have, but I doubt it very seriously. And they may have learned it from others, but it's the luck of the draw, life coming around, that here's this thing, that needs to be done. And there's already that. And again, I know I'm not taking a lot of presumptions, but that's the thing about this, is that when you meet somebody like this, and if there are people out there that are like this, I'm sure that you are in total agreement with what I'm saying. Is no, I'm a loyal person and I'm like this, but it didn't work that way for me. You're a loyal person way before opportunities for loyalty come into play.
Yeah.
Way before. It's already something that's already working in you. It's already something that's in your character, and I'd have no doubt it was for these 2 guys, is that this opportunity came up, and they probably volunteered for it, more than likely. Said, hey, we're willing to do this. Or maybe one, I'm talking about them as if they're pairs, but they may not be. They may have come to these conclusions separately. But through being involved in this together, they both have, melded together in this common purpose.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing is that when I think about Christianity, when I think about the purpose of Christianity and what God's intention for us, when you read through the book of Acts, when you read the Gospels in the book of Acts, you just read those, it becomes very clear that God is looking for loyal people. He is desperately looking for loyal people, not desperately from the standpoint that he's willing to compromise, but that loyal people are the requirement, they're the requisites for the will of God in the earth. There has to be those people. And if there aren't those people, then there isn't going to be people being brought to Jesus, because it requires people like that. And this is one of the most difficult things to overcome when it comes to religion, is that because religion is very self-oriented. It's about what God did for me. I mean, the number of things, and it's sickening to me. The number of things that have that are called Christianity. Some of the songs that are done. The number of songs today that have me, my, I. More than God. It's all me, my, I. I this, I that, I the other thing. What Jesus did for me. Well. I don't think it's stretching things to think that Christians should be singing songs about what they're doing for Jesus, because he's already done all that. He doesn't need to sit there and listen to us talk about how grateful we are, that he did all this for us when we are not doing anything for him.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be, if it's a two-way street, but it's a whole other thing when it's just all what Jesus has done. And so Jesus died on a cross for you. He rose again from the dead. He's brought your name before the Father. You have forgiveness. He's given you the Holy Spirit. And what have you done? I have appreciated everything that he's done for me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's sick. I mean, that is dreadfully sick, but yet it's very common.
Yeah.
It's very, very common, and it says a lot about Jesus, but it doesn't say anything about you.
Yeah.
It's a lot because he hears you say that and go, oh my God, I know if that was me, I would just, you know what? Hey, listen, that breath, you don't need it anymore. I'm going to give that to somebody who's going to use it. You're just inhaling and exhaling for no reason.
Yeah.
I could never deal with that. It's like, but Jesus, obviously, he does because he's waiting for judgment to deal with all that. That's when it's all going to be dealt with, is during judgment. But so the idea of being loyal, I think is like I said, that has to come before, all the applicable things. When you are a loyal person, you will find things to be loyal to, or they will find you.
Yeah.
Either way, they will find you. But the idea of being loyal, and here's the cool thing about it, I can honestly say, that's why I said it really is, and it really is selfish to do it, because I'll tell you, like I said, you get to do everything you've ever wanted to do in life, because everything you want to do in life is within your ability to do now. It's not because you've reduced yourself to something, it's that now my goals and my ideas before I became a Christian were so small. Their targets were so small and so shallow. I want to make some money. I want to, I want to be able to, be, independent, independently wealthy, or not to have to work, for a living, and enjoy life and be able to have things and be able to do things, and that was, it was just such a small goal in my life. But now my goal and my joy of seeing that goal fulfilled is I want to be able to travel the world and influence people for God, so that they will experience what I've experienced. And that's completely achievable, completely doable, and I'm able to do it. And one of the most recent times of doing that was when I was in Huizhou, the church in Huizhou, and all these people came in, and it was funny because there's another pastor who sent me a text. These people really love you. It was 2 months ago, September, October, November, December, January. It was like 4 months ago. No, November. Sorry, I went in November, December, January. So it's 2 months ago, but we make sure to tell Pastor Ford, we said hi, and they, they're always the people that were there when you were there. They're still coming, and they let me know all this stuff. I'm like their dad almost, and because but it's like I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. But I happened to be in the right place at the right time as the right person, and that's the part for me that's the great part, because that's really all I can do is just simply be the right person. I can't set the time or place, but I can just, if I'll be the right person, the time and place will find me, and then that's when you're really fulfilled. That's when you get it, when you receive a genuine fulfillment. That you can sail off of that. It doesn't matter what's going on in your life, in your present circumstances, anything like that. I can just look out at these different places that I've been in, different situations, and just the privilege of, there was a year where we had a conference, the video, and it just so happened to be that I was in almost every one of the churches when they were taking the video for that conference, and Pastor Warner was sitting next. His wheelchair was next to me in the aisle, watching this, and so he said, "What is this? The Dave Ford show?" Because I was in almost every video. I was preaching, evangelizing, praying for the sick, doing different things, and it's never happened since. But it just happened to be that particular conference video. It's like I was in every segment, of the video, because I just happened to be. And the thing is that the reason why wasn't because I was such a great man of God. It was because I said, God, now that I'm here, I'm in this great opportunity. I'm in England. England is like a hub, for the world. You can fly anywhere from there, and it's not very expensive, relatively speaking. I could, it's more expensive for me to fly from here to anywhere than it was when I was living in England. I could fly to France for $150 round trip, and I've never been able to do that in the States. And France is 4 hours away. Go 4 hours in any direction here, and you're talking $400 or $500 is minimum. It's that's if you don't take any luggage with you, or you take Southwest. But my point in all that is just the idea of I get to do all this. I get to experience all this. I get to be the man, in that place that people are grateful, for me being there. And it's like, I'm not living for people to be grateful to me. I'm living to be able to go to places and to just help people and just to minister to people and to be able to help them to find God. And some people are, they need to be delivered, be able to pray for them that Jesus will deliver them, to be able to preach deliverance so that they will want to be delivered. All of that, is just the Sunday. I preached a sermon on Sunday and was talking to Ellie about it, and Ellie was like, man, that just really hit me hard. And it's like, yes. I said, but that's the thing in my mind when I'm going to preach these things. My thought is, this is going to help so many people, but I didn't come up with the idea. God just gave it to me, and it's like, and the reason is because there's just the one thing that I have the control over in my life is just simply that I can be the right man. I can be loyal, I can be faithful, and I can be not just faithful to Jesus. There's a lot of people that they think they're being faithful to Jesus, while they're actually being unfaithful to Jesus because they're unfaithful to everything else. And it's like, no, I'm praying, I'm reading my Bible, I'm tithing, and it's like, yeah, I know you're praying because you need God to help you. You're reading your Bible because you need to know what God's has to say about things so that you can take advantage of Him. And then you're yeah. Enough said. I'm going to jump up on the table here in a minute.
Okay, quick. So you can answer the question here. I've kind of already answered this in the beginning. You even mentioned it right now. Is loyalty the same as faithfulness? Like, I'm faithful to Jesus, but am I also saying I'm loyal to Him? Am I saying the same thing twice?
Yeah, when you say I'm faithful to Jesus, you need to realize that doesn't mean anything. And it doesn't mean that you're not absolutely deceived and lying to yourself, because we're not the ones who determine our faithfulness. Other people are. A faithful man who can find.
Yeah.
Me, well, if
Yeah.
you were, you wouldn't have to raise your hand. You wouldn't have to declare it. And isn't that what the scripture says?
Yeah.
Many men will proclaim.
Exactly.
But a faithful man who can find. Everybody will say, I am faithful. But it's other people who make that determination. Not us. We don't make that determination. Other people make that determination. And if you want to know if you're faithful or not, count the number of people who are thanking you for helping them. Thanking you for being who you are. Say, well, yeah, nobody's doing that, but I'm faithful. Yeah, you're a legend in your own mind. Nobody's benefiting from your tremendous faithfulness. If nobody's thanking you, if nobody's coming to you and appreciating you, and I'm not talking about that you're doing it for that reason, but that if you don't have that kind of feedback from people, then you're not being faithful. You're not loyal. Because loyalty is something that people know about you. It's not something that you tell people about.
Yeah.
So it's very important to understand the difference. And so, to answer your question, faithfulness and loyalty, yeah, they are the same, but you're not faithful, am I loyal? You're both of those questions are up in the air still, and only Jesus can tell you whether you're faithful or loyal, and other people.
Yeah. Very cool. That's it for tonight. Appreciate the questions, comments, and those that jumped on and viewed. Those on Instagram. Thanks for joining, guys. And we will be here again next week. But as always, we really do, if you're not already a member of our congregation, or you haven't visited before, we'd love to see you. If you've visited before and haven't been in a while, come back. And we'd love to see you again. We'll have a midweek service tomorrow night. That's live and in person at 7 o'clock tomorrow here at the church. We'll put the address on the screen. And Sunday morning, Sunday evening, we also have two separate services. Invite you to join those, and once again, would love you to join us next week. Same time, same place, different topic, always live. Hopefully you have time to join live, and so that way you have opportunities to ask questions, and feel free to dig, and we'll be here again next week.